My Go won't take screenshots anymore. My Go has so many issues with it, but I don't want to factory reset it because I don't want to lose any of my game progress.
But it won't take screenshots. Same problem. Yeah.
It's so weird.
I have recently I've been playing my Go again frequently, but one of the big problems was let me just start it off first. Bad hands. It's good. So one of the things that I've noticed, like when I first got the Go, of course, like it was pristine, no problems whatsoever. Like performance was incredibly like I cannot express the words of like how refreshing it felt to experience the performance of Go for the first time. Oh, I saw what you did there. So anyway, like oh damn, that's really high card. Let me throw away. Can they close on it? I don't know. Anyway, so basically performance was amazing, right? And it's supposed to be amazing. Like nothing is supposed to change with the Go, since the big appeal of a standalone headset is it is predictable. Like it is something that it's basically a console. Like you may not have seen some of my posts before. Like I was posting very actively in the Gear VR and then the Oculus Go subreddits up until very recently. And one of the darn it, 1, 2, 3. Damn, I do not have any good cards. One of the things that I postulated was that Oculus Go, this was before the Oculus Go came out, right? So I had an unhealthy amount of posting about Oculus Go, about the product before it got released. And I went into technical details. Like I bugged a lot of high-level Oculus people about it. Like I bugged John Carmack a bunch of times. And actually it became pretty productive. But I figured out that Go is basically more or less a Gear VR console. Like that is the mission statement, right? That do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it basically is. The only difference is like developers they always know what hardware they're writing for, whereas with the Gear VR, they never know what hardware the person's gonna be using.
Speaking of the Gear VR ecosystem, oh my god. I know we're being recorded, can't give too many details, but let me just mention how, how enlightening my discussion was with one of the developers of like one of the really big games. Like, I don't want to divulge too many details because you'll actually figure out what type of game I'm referring to and what type of developer was the one that developed that. So I won't go into the details, but he basically expressed like incredible frustration over the experience of developing for the Gear VR ecosystem. Like there was no problem technically with actual hardware, you know? Like S7, the S7 at the time was like, it was second gen, right? It was something that it was one step above the baseline, or what should have been the baseline for the Gear VR. Unfortunately, when this developer started developing, they spent months, they spent literal months on a game that they thought would take weeks, right? And the big problem was the Gear VR was, how do I say it? Wait, hold on. Hold on. I'm getting distracted by myself. Like, I don't have any moves right now. Shit. Okay, I'll pick that. Where was I? So it took weeks and it took months instead of weeks, and I keep hearing that in almost every public discussion of how developers port their games onto the mobile VR ecosystem of Oculus, whether it be VR or Oculus Go. So what he said, the major reason was not the hardware, but rather like the horrible state that the Android ecosystem itself is in. Right?
Okay.
So I mean, I have a feeling that we are not representative. We do not have all the stats, but the general
What was
the
I
general
doing there?
state was you can undo if you want. You can
it's too
always
late.
undo. Yeah.
How do you
and
undo?
Next time if you need to undo, just use the touchpad, swipe to going left, right to left. So for example,
you
here
sure
I'm gonna
I don't know if
do
that'll be
something and then I'm
enabled.
gonna undo it.
Oh, look at that. All right, cool.
So as long as you don't
Cool.
pick up a card, you can undo like when you put down a card. But the moment
Cool.
you pick up a card, that becomes like irreversible. And I learned that the hard way on several occasions. Anyway, yeah, there you go. Damn. Okay, bad card. So yeah, so the ecosystem, the idea was the ecosystem of Android made it such that doing any sort of performance-intensive things on in a game, in a VR game, in Gear VR. Shit, like here. It was simply it was going to be always hassled by like the constant variability of performance across the installed base of all the phones that Gear VR could run on. Like during development, you have a clean card, right? I mean, a clean phone. Like you would develop on your developer unit would be more or less free of any bloatware, free of any extraneous apps, stuff like that. You probably wouldn't even update it, right? Because
Right.
on another side note, have you noticed, like, did you own a Gear VR headset before owning a Go?
No, I'm an iOS guy.
All right, okay, cool. So, you would be very happy to know that getting into Gear VR, it was revelatory, but I would definitely say that there were a lot of eccentricities, right, involved. Like you had to worry about so much, man. Like thermal management, which is something that basically is unheard of on the Oculus Go and Oculus Quest. Those were the #1 priority of both users and developers.
Thermal, like just stuff getting too hot?
Yeah, overheating was a constant issue. Like it was like, you know how the Oculus Store is very strict about, developers must make sure that this device will run for a steady 30 minutes on an S6, for example, right? So
I did not know that, but now I do.
Yeah, there you go. This might actually this sort of information might be due to my aforementioned. Oh, god damn it! Shit. Crap. Okay. It's due to my aforementioned obsession before. Hopefully not anymore. My obsession with like getting as much details about the platform that I was on. Back then it was Gear VR, now it's Oculus Go, and in the future, hopefully, it'll be the Quest. When I finally get the money to, and like the connections to get it imported by a friend from the
Doesn't
US.
sound like it's any rush to get the Quest though. I mean, I actually saw a Quest. I saw a Quest used for. I posted it in the GoMunity Discord a while back.
Uh-huh.
I found, and it was I don't know, almost half price. It seemed like someone was selling their Quest.
Half price? Why?
I don't know.
That's
It was
insane.
maybe it was only $100 off. I don't know. It was like $300 or $400 instead of $500. I don't know. It was. But the thing, I'm not in any rush to get the Quest because everyone I play with has a Go except for a handful of folks who've upgraded to the Quest, and I've heard so much about there's very little content on the Quest. I mean, the content that's there is great, but I like having the variety on the Go, and I already have a lot of money on the Go, and it's enough for me. No, the fact that we're just sitting down. I mean, we don't need 6 degrees of freedom for this.
Yeah. And that actually, to go on a side note, like that has absolutely been my big I don't want to say argument because I don't enjoy I never enjoy arguing with people online or anywhere really. But like the stance that I've always taken with Go versus Quest or any other headset, but especially Quest. When people like when you hear the argument that Quest is what the Go should have been, right?
I hate that.
Like you hear that a lot. I'm like, no, like if the Quest is what the Go should have been, if the Quest was released last year, like let's assume that they released with the exact same components with all the stuff, especially with that 835. Like I hear so often, like so many people say, oh, the Go should have launched with the 835, or the Quest should have launched with the insert current gen chipset here, right? But it seems so obvious in hindsight, but it gets over, like it goes over so many people's heads. Where if Quest launched last year with a current, like even with the last gen at the time, the 835, because last year it was 845 already, right? If it released with the previous generation's chip, that is a flagship chip, and you would not have gotten the Quest for $400.
Yep.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
the argument I always use is people like, the Go is going to be obsolete in 2 years. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yep.
Not everybody is going to have the most recent, like just think about video games. Not everyone always had the recent console. My first video game console was the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis had already been around for several years. And because I couldn't afford a brand new NES, I couldn't afford the brand new games, but we'd go to Walmart once a week and see what was in their discount bin of the games, and that's what we did, and that's what I'll do with the Go. I'll keep it until my Go dies and it's no longer supported by Oculus. But I think that's still 5 years away, if anything.
And so here's the thing, like first of all, that is precisely one of the big reasons for still having the Go. Or like if you had to choose between a Go and a Quest, like brand new, that's one of the major benefits of getting a Go instead of a Quest. Like the library is there, and it is not just there, it began since way before the Go even launched.
Yeah,
like
the fact that it's launched with 100 Gear VR titles.
Yeah, actually what the Go launched last year, right? Back then I think I actually posted one of those obsessive posts on Gear VR when I tried to use an algorithm to count the number of titles on the Gear VR at that point right before the Go launched. And I discovered it was close to over 500 titles. Can you imagine that? Like, here's people saying...
Not maybe half of them were good.
True. Like, of course, like the traditional... Okay, I wouldn't say traditional drama, but there is definitely going to be like a bell curve of experience, right? A vast majority of them is gonna be like, okay, I guess, okay to like a little bit more than okay. It's definitely gonna be a better bell curve or a better distribution than on Android phones, where like they have tens of millions of apps and also tens of millions of crap apps.